Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host, Fight CPS with Bob Pace. Now, CPS, I call CPS the Child Protection System. Every county has social services, and a branch of social services is the Child Protection System. It's supposed to protect our children from neglect and abuse, and also supposed to help out family in need for food, for clothing, for education, for medical, housing, and also for a job. They're also supposed to help a family that is in need or has been broken up if they have to take their children, except only extreme violence taking place. Then there'll be a family reunification where you get the family back together. And it's important you remember that. That's one of the responsibilities, to get that family back together. Because the best parents out there are the biological parents. The best parents out there are the biological parents. So, here we are in a room with I hope all kinds of you people are welcome, because this is a room where you'll learn what to do and what not to do when you're with CPS. I first have to tell you that CPS has become very corrupt. They're dishonest, they lie, they retaliate, and they embezzle funds and traffic our children. Yes, you heard me right. Now, I had a case, and my children were involved with the Orange County CPS group. Now, I'm glad you found me. I was located on Facebook, How to Fight CPS with Bob Pace. I'm transmitting on YouTube using the StreamYard application. So when you looked up Fight CPS, you probably saw Bob Pace attached to it, because I'm the one that does this podcast twice a day, 7 days a week. That's Monday morning at 10 o'clock, 1 hour Pacific Standard Time, or in the evening, 3 hours. And that's at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And in this room, in this short period of time, I'm supposed to help you with a wealth of information of what my case was like when I went through CPS. Now, there's a couple ways you can interact in this podcast. One way is being in my room, taking notes and listening. Most of you are doing that now. Also, you can do emojis, smiley faces, hearts, thumbs up. Those kind of emojis would be nice to have in here. Now, a second way to operate or to work with this podcast is by texting a comment or a question. Now, there's certain rules you need to follow when you're texting a comment or a question. First one is that CPS, it should be about CPS. We're in this room to help others with the child protection system. In California, it's called CPS. But other states like Arizona's Department Children's Services. And then it's important when you text a comment or a question that pertains to CPS. There's a lot of politics going on. We could be talking about a lot of other things. Please show your name, city, state, or country, and be complete with your CPS case. Now, what I mean by showing your name is that a lot of you may have names already, but sometimes the names aren't your typical names. They're sometimes recognizing certain events in your life, like soaring eagles or jumbo hippopotamus or dancing snakes. But if your name's like a Mary Sanford or Mary or Bill or Mike, it'd be a lot easier for me to recognize you that way than is something called hungry horny toads. So it is important that you put a name that I can call you. Now, when I ask for the city, it could be a county, because I'm fine if you don't want to put your city, you want to put the county, that's fine too. But put the state with that county. I was thinking, I'll try again. When I mention the city, I also can be the county or the state. And then it's the country, because I do allow people from countries to be in here. And you should be complete with your CPS case. The countries that I have so far have been Bangladesh, India, Africa, and I've had 3 countries within Africa. Liberia in the northwest along the coast, the West Province of South Africa, Mozambique in the opposite on the east coast of Madagascar, and Rwanda, which is Central East Africa, near Lake Victoria. Then we move up to Europe, have England, Scotland, Wales, Denmark, and Sweden. Then we move over across the pond to North America. We have Canada, both sides of Canada. I've had all 50 states and Washington, D.C. And I've talked to some remote places in the United States, like the Rosebud Reservation, which is the Lakota Sioux Territory in South Dakota, and also the Cherokee Reservation in Oklahoma. Moving down south, I've talked to Mexico, and then in South America it was Guyana, and then across the pond it was Africa. So I have about 13 different countries right now. 13 countries. And when I say be complete, try to tell the structure of your family, whether it's mother, father, whether the parents are still involved with their children, and whether there are several different parents with different children. Now, besides telling me what your family structure is about, also name the children not by their names, but the ages and the sex of the children, what your allegations were, and how your children were taken. And lastly, to tell me where you're at on your case. So that way I don't have to play ping pong ball with you back and forth. Now, I know it's very hot to probably where you're at. It's very hot where I'm at, too. I'm not getting the ocean breeze because it just died out. I don't know what it is. So right now, it's about 90 degrees where I'm at. Now, I'm broadcast from Surf City, USA, and I've had numerous of years of experience fighting CPS. The third way you could do with this podcast is you could schedule to be our guest on the podcast. Now, I have room for 9 people, total to 10 people. All you have to do is email my show producer, Grace. She can be emailed grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. She'll contact you and give you the link to go to StreamYard. That's the application I'm on, and I'm using YouTube to run my podcast show on. Now, all you have to do is email Grace. I want to be Bob's morning show or afternoon show or evening show. Just have to go back and forth. Now, the email is grace@vincentwdavis.com. I put it up on the screen. So, and now send an email of what date you like to be on. Now, I'm on at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour, or 7 o'clock at night for 1 hour Pacific Standard Time. And there's one exception. So every Sunday, I'm on at 8 o'clock because I have family with my church. Now, there may be other days during the football season that I'll be coming on early at 3 o'clock. But this Friday, I'm not going to, my son's game is away in Hawaii, so I'll be watching on Saturday. So Saturday, I may be doing my podcast at 3 o'clock. But all you have to tell is Grace whether you want to be the morning show or the evening show. I'm on 7 days a week, 14 shows, say Sunday, Saturday, Monday. So you just give the time and she'll gladly put you on there. And she will talk to you, give you the link to YouTube, and tell you what you can do and not do as a guest. Now, there's no eating or smoking or chewing ice or chewing anything on the podcast. But being on the podcast, you'd be just like me with a window next to me. As I say, I can take 9 guests. So that's the third way. Now, the fourth way with this podcast is you can call in to my phone number at 626-698-0990. Now, that is my live number. It's my work number. And I have a Vonage application, a phone application that controls my phone. So I'll leave that phone number on there, and you can call me at 626 698 0990. Now, at this time of the morning, I don't know, it seems like now, I hope people are still getting notified on Facebook and people are still fighting Fight CPS. Because right now it seems like we have nobody in the room at the moment. We've had some people came in, but then they disappeared. Now, usually I have Faye on for Richmond, Kentucky. I have another person named Natalie from West Hollywood, California. And they usually come on, but it's been extremely hot weather. And Faye has been under the weather. Now, another person I have, her name is Natalie, and she's from West Hollywood, California. Also, I have a co-host, but she's not been on. I don't know what happened to her. That was Danielle from Georgia. But if anybody would like to be a co-host or like to be on the show, please contact Grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's her email. Now, since no one wants to call at the moment, I have several ways I can go with this. I can talk about topics. I got about 50 of them loaded. Things like ICWA. Also, I have things about the ICPC and what types social workers are and what the do's and don'ts, so what to look for in social workers. Now, I will tell you this, the Child Protection Agency is very corrupt. I think what I could do right now is talk a little bit about my case and how I got involved in CPS and what kind of a person I am. I'm a loving and caring father. I have 6 children, 3 older ones and 3 younger ones. I've been married for 31 years to my wife, and we encountered a bad, tragic thing that happened to us about 2015. At that summer of 2015, so what I'm saying right now is that it's very, very hard. It's very, 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 very hard to talk about when you lose a family member. Now, I know you all have lost, and you're right now experiencing a very tragic agency. The child protection system, which I call CPS, is a bad agency. And how it affected me, my wife, is that in 2010, I lost my job through no fault of my own. I've been working for already 50 years. And at age 60, I had to close the doors to the company that I was operating. I had a general construction company. And I had $53 million worth of contract work. Unfortunately, even though the funds are public and awarded to me, the state of California did not want to release those funds because they needed to temporarily borrow against those funds to take care of the state of California so it wouldn't go bankrupt. Now, I could have sued them, but it would cost $50 million to sue them. So I wouldn't be really saving much money by having only $3 million left of work to do. So I went out looking for work. The problem is when you're 60 years old, no one wants to hire. They think you're a dinosaur. Plus, unbeknownst to me and my wife, we had some family members of her mother, her dad, her 3 sisters, and her brother. They're making false accusations about us not taking care of our children. And that's hard to believe because I had a house that was a beautiful house. It's a mile from the beach, and we live in Surf City, USA in Southern California. So what was happening was these accusations would come in, and it was silly accusations. They're done by lay people. So there's 2 types of people do accusations: professional people and lay people. Well, these lay people are the ones that are really bad because 50% of the allegations called in are tactics used to alienate the parents from the children or revenge against the family. A neighbor may not like your dog barking, so they're going to falsify and call the child protection system and say you're not watching your children. The child protection system calls them and says, we have a report you're not watching your children. Person says, I don't have any children. That's the sad part, is there's a lot of falsifying reports that come in. And CPS is supposed to take its time during the investigation to find out what's wrong and also offer any kind of assistance. So we were thinking, why were they getting these accusations? There was silly things like we weren't feeding our kids, we weren't paying the utility bills, they weren't in school, they didn't have clothing. You see, any layperson can say anything they want, and the child protection system will believe them and then put you in guilty mode. You see, when accusations come in, the child protection agency will say you're guilty. It's the only court of law where you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Every other court of law, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. And so I would get these complaints every week, and this went on for about 5 years. And I would disprove it. I'd show them their grade reports. I'd show them the utility bills were paid. I even had them in the house on several occasions, show where the feeding area was and how to take care of it and stuff. But I did not know at this time. And if I knew that, I don't think I would have lost my daughter, because what had happened was, after 5 years of this nonsense of playing cat and mouse with them, they finally got the help of the local police and followed me when I picked up my young son and ordered me to go back to my house. Now, I did not know my rule number 3. And, they're not supposed to come in your house unless you give them permission or there's intimate violence taking place. So this went on and on and on. I showed them where food prep was. I showed them the house. They saw nothing wrong with it. The social worker met with me a lot out in the car. But my in-laws were very persistent. And so this time they got the help of a local policeman who followed me and had me pulled over by black and white. And that unit said that the guy behind him wanted to talk to you. So my wife and I was supposed to pick her up, but the detective insisted that I come back to my house. Lo and behold, waiting for me at my house was 5 firemen, 3 social workers, 2 code enforcement, 2 uniformed policemen, and the detective. And the only thing that they found was that we were neglect to our children. Neglect. So this went on. And when this detective had me march home, I did not know about the rule about not letting them in your home or not even talking to them. But I talked to him, I let them in my home. And in doing so, they discovered that I had furniture stacked and boxes stacked in the living room. Not all through the house, it was only in the living room. And the children were not in imminent danger. So I'm telling you this because I don't want you to experience the same problem myself. Be careful when you're dealing with the police or the social workers, because there's only 3 ways to get in your home. One way is you give permission. The second way is that you have domestic violence going on where children are getting hurt or could get hurt, and the parents are having a tumble. And so I'm telling you, what you need to do is tell the social workers or the policeman that you need to speak to your attorney first, because you're supposed to have representation through any legal matter. And that leads you to my first rule about hiring an attorney or getting an attorney. Now, we were given a court appointed attorney, and those court appointed attorneys were extremely bad. So I'm telling you that these people, the 5 firemen, the code enforcement people, and the social workers all followed me into my home. And that's the mistake. You should tell them that you got to have your attorney present. There's only 3 ways to get in your home. 1, if you give them permission. 2, if there's domestic violence going on. Or 3, if there's imminent danger. So I'm telling you is that your answer to them should be, I need to take a timeout and contact my attorney before I let anybody in here. Before I let anybody in here. Because you don't want them to come into your home because they will find something. And in my case, they did find something. Code enforcement found a gate that was loose. The nuts and bolts were loose. No big deal. They could be tightened. They said the yard needed trimming. I didn't have money when I lost my job to keep the landscaper. So yes, the yard needed trimming. That's the only thing code enforcement can find out. The firemen can find nothing wrong with the fire smoke detector or the, I guess the other kind of detector for O2. They couldn't find anything wrong there. So I had some boxes and furniture stacked, and they said that could harm the children. That's negligence. So they charged my wife and I with 3 counts of negligence and 3 counts so I'm telling you, yes. Jeez. My case I had where they took my children back in 2015 hurt me very much. And it hurts. It hurts very, very much because I have these flashbacks of what they did to me. They stole my daughter. They stole my 2 sons. They were not in imminent danger. See, what's happened to the child protection system is they take children that are not in imminent danger. And I don't want you all to experience the same thing too about having your children alienated or right away taken into foster care. I don't want them taken in. Now, I know you guys have heard my story many, many times. There's over 500 podcasts that I've done. And it helps me if someone is in the room, they like to talk about their case or what they like to talk about. Now, I do have something here that I can share things that came up basically with CPS. Now, I have this subscribing I do to Quora Digest, and it talks about stories. Now, here's a CPS case who wants to put my 7-year-old son Ritalin. I said I'm against it, and the social worker said she would just put an order to the judge. How can I prevent this? This is a good question. And here is the answer. The person answered, said, "Hello, I went through a similar situation. I forgot the name of the medication, but it's a time released. Ask the doctor. We would give him one in the morning and he would talk." See here. We'd give him one in the morning and he would take one at lunch. If any side effects, I didn't notice. But my son would come home from school to do his homework and turn on the uh, doctors. I asked him why he's watching that instead of cartoons. He said, "Mommy, I want to." All in all, it made me more focused, but also less movement until the weekend. I wouldn't give it to him on the weekends. He was still a child and needed to enjoy himself. Now, this thing about using drugs, CPS are going to want to do drugs with you. That is wrong. You don't let that happen. They're going to try to say there's a mental issue with you and take your children. You got to be careful of that. You got to be careful. Now, I have another question that came up on Quora. It says, "Has someone ever unjustified reported you to the Child Protection Services? What was the outcome?" Well, the answer was interesting. It said, "I was reported to CPS for not showing enough affection to my daughter at the hospital. While I was at work, my wife was watching the two kids at home. My 2-year-old daughter was jumping on the couch next to my wife when she bounced the wrong way and fell sideways. Her upper body landed on the coffee table and her legs stayed on the couch. Her stomach was left dangling in the middle. As a result, she suffered Richter's hernia, where part of her intestine poked through a hole in her abdomen. Oh, terrible. Just enough to particularly block the food and cut off circulation of that part of her intestine. It wasn't a big deal at the time. Our kids got themselves banged up pretty often. 2 days later, my daughter was complaining about a sore stomach. My wife and I checked it out. Her lower stomach was hard and warm to the touch. I thought it might have been appendicitis. So we took her to the hospital. It was about 8 p.m. and the emergency room was busy. We waited patiently for our turn. Finally, my name was called to check in. My wife stayed in her seat with my son, and I carried my daughter to the reception desk. I sat down in the chair across from the reception. My daughter's stomach hurts, so I had to hold her body straight. The receptionist handed me a clipboard and full of papers to fill out. I didn't know. I didn't know how to hold my daughter and fill out the papers at the same time. The best I could do was across my leg and lay my daughter down across my lap so I could use both hands. I finished the paperwork, turned it in. I joined my wife and son in the waiting area. Sometime later, they called us back, and the doctor checked on my daughter's abdomen. It looked bad, so they admitted her. I took my son home, and my wife stayed with our daughter. So I took my son home, and my wife stayed with our daughter. I arrived home and put my son to bed. I went to sleep about midnight. I got a call from my wife. She was crying. This is where you got to be careful about a medical transfer. And so someone had reported us to CPS. Medical trafficking is what's happening. CPS workers are in the hospital. So, since I was the one who was suspected of child abuse, and I was alone with our son, it was an emergency case, and they had to come immediately. She was upset. I was upset. The two ladies who came took the long way to our house. So it was 1 a.m. before they got there. They came in, and I showed them around. They said they had to see my son, so they took him to his room and let them look. He was sleeping peacefully. They asked me a lot of questions, including if I spanked my children. I said I did if nothing else worked. They wrote that down. See, that's another thing. You don't talk to social workers. The house was spotless. Wasn't spotless, but it was fine. They thanked me for my time and excused themselves. I could hardly sleep after that, and my wife was super stressed, not only for my daughter, but for me and my son. My daughter was transferred to a bigger hospital where they operated on her. To this day, she hates needles. A few days later, we got a call. Our case was ruled unsubstantiated. We found out that the two hospital receptionists didn't think I was affectionate enough with my daughter. I wasn't colored as much as the reception thought I should have, so she reported me. We talked to the hospital administrators, and they apologized profusely, and they conducted training with the staff on what is and what is not considered indicator child abuse. So that sounds like they had a happy ending, but you got to be careful. My rule number 3, I talk about medical trafficking, and that's where social workers will take a child because you bring them in, they're hurt or injured, and they think the hurt or injured is bad, and they got extreme violence. They need to go in there to foster care, which is far from the truth. Far from the truth. And so that case tells me you got to be careful, very, very careful. Now, here's another CPS case on Quora. Here was the question. I want to argue if someone reports you to CPS, your children should be removed until the investigation is complete. That means they should not be removed till the investigation is complete. So the question is, why does CPS leave them in potential unsafe homes when there's possibly a child will be strangled? One of my children, wow. So you really got to be careful of medical transferring or trafficking, medical trafficking. See, the type of social workers you have out there, and I'll give you an example. The Pink Ladies of Arizona. There are 8 female social workers that bought 8 pink t-shirts. And on the front, they stenciled, "We're professional child kidnappers." And on the back, they put, "Do you know where your children are at?" So I'm telling you, you have to be careful. You have to be on your wits' end because these social workers, these 8 social workers, wore these pink t-shirts to Walmart, to Costco, to Target, to Best Buys, parade around and set out the wrong kind of message. The message was they're professional child kidnappers. And they were saying, "Do you know where your children are at?" Because they're out there getting your child. So that's the first example of disjointed social workers. The other incident that I can remember involves a social worker who had her Facebook page and she identified herself. She was from Chicago, Illinois, identified herself um, with the. So I am thinking of the next step here. We do have someone new to this room, which I'm happy to hear. Her name is Kaisha Maki Mawoska from Florida. And what part of Florida are you from? I have my phone number up. Um, I don't know who took down my message on my screen, but that was taken down. Okay. And St. Petersburg. All right. Welcome. And I imagine you have a CPS case. And I was reading stories of CPS cases when you came into the room. Would you like to call me at 626-698-0990 and talk about your CPS case? Or would you like to ask a comment? Or would you like to be a guest? I'd love for you to call me. My phone number is live. It's 626-698-0990. Now, this is a new person who found me on Facebook, To Fight CPS with Bob Pace. And she's from Petersburg, Florida. St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm just waiting for her to give me the call here. Hold on 1 second here. You get my number okay there, Kashia? It's 626-698-0990. 0990. Now, I don't know what part of I don't know how hot it is in St. Petersburg, Florida, but it's really hot today. This is the hottest day that I've been in a long time. All right, Kasha, I'll continue with my stories, and you can still call me when you can find time to do so. My phone will ring. Now, this other story is that the person said, I want to argue if someone reports you to CPS, your children should be removed until the investigation is complete. But why does CPS leave in potentially unsafe homes where it's the possibility the child will be strangled? Now, this is interesting. Of the 500 or more parents that I've had calling the cases, their children weren't in danger. But this particular person wants to argue that CPS should automatically remove children. And that's not necessarily true. And so what happened was um, welcome.
Hello, sir. Good morning. This is Jana. I have Kasha Maxim Puska.
Oh, okay. Are you an answering machine or something? Or
I'm one of the reception, sir, from Law Office of Vincent Davis.
Oh, great. Glad to have you here. Go ahead, Kasha. She arranged you to call my phone. Can you hear me okay, Kasha?
Yes.
Great. What would you like?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine. And you're from St. Petersburg, Florida. And what happened in your?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I do. And what happened in your case?
Yes. So I have 3 children. So back in October 2020, I gave birth to my 3rd son, and I tested positive for medications and prescriptions and stuff like that I'm prescribed, and they thought that I just gave birth, and I tested positive for illicit drugs. So when I talked when they came out, I spoke to the CPI worker. I showed them my prescription and all that stuff. Well, she was fine. She even helped me get like the car seat. And anyway, she went on vacation for 2-3 days. I get a knock on the door the next day, and here's CPI again saying they got another call for whatever. I don't know what it was. But anyways, long story short, they ended up taking all 3 of my children. My baby was 13 days old. My other kid was 5, and the other one was 7. And I'm still fighting to this day to get my children back.
That's unfortunate because what you've encountered is a very corrupt social worker. And they're taking advantage of you. First of all, when you went to
it was crazy. I did the case plan. I did everything. I even got a private attorney.
Right. Hold on a second. I'm going to start from the beginning where the mistakes that were made. When you go to the hospital to have a child, there are social workers for CPS that hang out there and they do tricks. They're not allowed in your birthing room or where you're having your children. They have to have a court order to take your children. They can't ask you for your child just because you tested positive. And you told the social worker that they were prescribed drugs by a doctor. So that social worker is being very zealous because they make money off us with our kids being taken. It's $1 trillion business, not billions and not millions. It's trillions of dollars. They're making money. So they want to have your child in there. What you should have done is told them that you're not taking my child. I need to talk to my attorney and have your attorney present. Now, you said you hired an
Right.
attorney. Is this attorney familiar with dependency law, family and juveniles?
I guess not, because when he withdrew from my case, I got unsupervised visits without him. And the fun part is I had unsupervised visits, and it went from unsupervised visits to terminating my political rights.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, because what they've done is they've taken advantage. Are you a single parent, or is the father involved?
No, I am. The father is involved. We're married.
Okay.
And they had him going through all the too.
Now, what I don't seem to understand is that this social worker at the hospital goes on vacation and then shows up your door. Now, what your attorney should have told you to do is not open the door to them. You don't have to open the door. There's only 3 ways they get in the house. One is by permission. You give them permission, or someone in the household gives them permission. 2, there's domestic violence going on where they're being hurt, the child's being strangled or slammed against the wall, or the parents are arguing. Or 3 is a court order where there has to be a warrant signed by a judge and his signature embossed, meaning a raised up part of the parchment paper. And it has to be clearly filled out, and it has to be dated Monday through Friday because the courts are not open on the weekends. And I think what happens, you went ahead and grabbed the wrong kind of attorney.
Yes.
And the thing is right now, I have an attorney who I want to thank very much for making this podcast available. His name is Vincent W. Davis. He has 35 years of fighting CPS and winning cases against CPS. He is a juvenile family dependency lawyer. He's a trial attorney, and he knows what he's doing. And I have a phone number that you could talk to him. The phone number is 888-888-6582. And he'll do a consultation for 30 minutes on Zoom for $60. It's a special arrangement I made. He's the best in the country. You're not going to find a better one. And I'm not saying you have to hire him or retain him, but you should at least talk to him so that he can help you navigate and help you get your children back. CPS from St. Petersburg, Florida, they broke your constitutional and civil rights. They don't care. They're interested in having your children adopted through foster care. So you need to talk to Vincent Davis as soon as you can. And copy.
That number one more time?
Yeah, it's on my screen. It's 888-888-6582.
Okay, that number. Okay.
Yeah, 888-888-6582. I also have a ticket running across the bottom of my screen that gives the web page of where his appointment book is. So if you read it, it says https:// CALENDLY.com/apps APPTS/Bob Pace BOBPACE, and that will tell his calendar. But I really encourage you to do and talk to him. Now, my time is up. I wish he had called in earlier, but I'd be again on tonight at
Thank you.
at 7 o'clock my time.
Okay.
And I'd love to hear from you, all right?
All right, thank you so much.
And so please call
All right.
him and help you. But whatever you do not
All right.
let the social workers in your home and don't talk to them until you talk to Mr. Davis. Okay?
All right.
So it's a pleasure meeting you.
All right.
And I hope to talk to you again. I'm on twice a day. So call in again, all right? Thank you. All right, I'm going to say goodnight to my room here. Thank you for all the people listening. Keep fighting for your kids. And I will see you tonight at 7 o'clock. This is Bob Pace